Boom, what's up everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm super excited for today's episode. We're featuring Neel Nanda. We're gonna be talking about culture of comedy. We have so much to chat about. I'm super excited, my man.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
I love how we ended up finding each other, and you were in the Bay visiting from LA, and we had the psychedelic seminars going on, and we were looking for a cool act, and I was like, you're really good, come do the act. And you opened it up, crushed it.
Thank you, man.
So
it
good.
was super fun. It was super fun. Yeah, know more about psychedelics than I thought I did.
Yeah, your stories were good. Your first accidental experience. Yeah,
it was wild, man.
I thought it was a weed brownie. Oh, it ended up being a mushroom brownie.
Ended up being a dog shit mushroom brownie. I can't believe it tasted so bad.
Your background's great. You did stand up on Jimmy Kimmel. You also have worked with Comedy Central. You've done some, Vice, right?
Yeah,
there've been like
Vice and Hulu, and just on Amazon Prime recently, and so yeah, just a couple things here and there, yeah.
And then you produce a weekly show called Unnecessary Evil.
Yes, a weekly show in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, at the Westside Comedy Theater, every Friday at 8 p.m. And I've been doing that for 6 years.
6 years.
It's going to be 6 years next week, November 2nd, our 6-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Can't believe it's been 6 years.
See, that's a big deal because, you've been doing stand-up for almost 10 years now, since 2009.
Yeah.
And once you gain 6 years of producing a show where you actually, pay comics, people pay for tickets,
right.
Then you pay comics, that learning how to do that week after week for 6 years is a huge deal for experience and for learning the ecosystem, how things work.
Yes, the ecosystem. That's what I call it always, yeah. The ecosystem of comedy. Comedy ecosystem. Now, the bottom of the ecosystem. Yeah, it's been a really great experience. I've been able to work with some incredible comedians, some of my heroes. This year alone, Adam Sandler dropped in.
Whoa.
That was crazy.
Whoa.
That was you want to hear the story?
I do want to hear the story.
Should I get into it?
And I want to unpack also your life and upbringing and the path of comedy, but let's unpack the Adam Sandler story.
Yeah, I just dropped it. Yeah, so I don't want to leave a cliffhanger. So Adam Sandler was he's had dropped into the theater once or twice. And I believe he's working on his Netflix special that's coming out in 2 days, I think. And so he was I believe he lives on the West Side somewhere. I don't know. I didn't stalk him that hard. And I had seen him walking the streets of Santa Monica half an hour before my show. And so I saw him in the distance, and I ran up to him, and I stopped like 10 feet before I reached him, and I caught my breath. I didn't want to look like I ran up to him.
Yeah.
So I caught my breath, and then I walked past him. I gave him a double tick. Oh, hey, are you Adam Sandler? And of course he gave me the, hey, how you doing? I was like, hey, hi, and then he broke out into a song about his mom. And he gave me the, hey, how you doing? And I was like, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but and he was with his wife. He introduced me to his wife. Wow. He was like, oh, it's my wife. I believe her name was Jackie Sandler. And he was like, hey, it's my wife, Jackie. Hey, how you doing, my wife, Jackie? That's my terrible Adam Sandler impression. And I met both of them, and I asked him nicely. I was like, hey, man, I got a show that's starting in half an hour. If you want to drop by, you can do as much time as you want. And he was like, I don't have anything to work on. I'm not that funny. I was like, dude, you're Adam Sandler. You could literally shit into the microphone. And if that's possible, you could do it. And everyone would lose their mind. And he was like, nah, you young guys are so funny. And I can't get, no. And I was like, come on, dude, we'd love to have you. We're there every Friday at 8 o'clock. And he goes, every Friday? I go, yeah, it's every Friday. He goes, 8 o'clock? I was like, yeah, you can come by whenever you want. And he was like, okay, I'll come by. Left, didn't see him again until months later. I'm at my show. I'm on stage. I'm performing, and I'm having one of those fun sets with some crowd work, and I'm messing around, trying some new material. I remember thinking like, oh, this is a really fun set. I'm having a good time. And I get off stage, and the comic who was supposed to be up next was supposed to close it out. And he's not in the wing of the stage. Usually they're in the wing to get up. And I was like, where is he? You know, and the host goes up on stage, and he's backstage. I go, dude, you're next. This is my show. So I'm like, I know the running order. I'm like, hey, we're running late. I need you to get up on stage and get this show wrapped up. And he goes, nah, I'm after Sandler. I said, what? And he goes, yeah, Sandler dropped in. I said, you're kidding. I thought he was joking. I was like, haha, dude, you need to get on stage right now. And then I hear the host out there, and she's like, okay, guys, please put away all your cell phones, no photography, no video, no that. And I'm just like, what is she prepping for? And Adam Sandler was behind the bar. And he sneaks out from behind the bar because he didn't want to come backstage, so you have to walk through the audience to get backstage. Yeah. Usually the comics get there before the show starts or like right around when the show starts, so they're already back there. But he didn't want to walk through.
And he coordinated with someone else to surprise you then.
I guess. Well, he coordinated with the bar. Like he walked in. And of course, the club isn't going to be like, no, get out of here. You know, hey, who are you? You know.
So, he told me that I could do a set whenever I want.
Basically, yeah. So he must have said that to the bartender or something. The bartender was like, all right, wait here, we'll get you up next. And then the bartender must have relayed the message to the green room. So he goes on stage, and he said, I was like, how much time is he doing? And the host was like, he said he's going to do 35 minutes. That's an Adam Sandler 5, which nobody's stopping him, of course. Yeah. Nobody's like, get off, we got another show. You know, nobody cares. The theater's really cool about if somebody huge drops in. Like, we've had other people like Hannibal and Howie Mandel and Ali Wong and Damon Wayans and people. And whenever people like that drop in, the theater's very cool about just let them run. It's good for the theater. It's good for the show. If our next show starts late, we just say, oh, it's because Adam Sandler dropped in. And now they're like, I was just here. I was outside. Oh. You know, and so he does like 30 minutes, and I run up to him on his way out to thank him, just to say, hey, thanks for dropping by. It was really nice of you. Totally. And he gives me the, oh man, it's made my life, but he gave me the, oh yeah, this was your show. I was like, yeah, man, thanks for coming by. He's like, yeah, it was nice meeting you. He goes, and you were really funny. And I was like, he saw my set. He told me I was funny. I lost my mind. And then I told him, I said, anytime you want to drop in, we're here every Friday. He goes, every Friday? I go, yeah. 8 o'clock? I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay. And he dropped in one other time when I was out of town. But yeah. That was crazy. That was my Adam Sandler story.
I love that story. There's two things that I find fascinating about that story. The first thing, there's a lot of things, but these are the two that I really stick out I want to share. First thing is that I love your initiative because most people don't know that they have power, and all they have to do is go and take the risk of seeing the person that they want to talk to, and like you did it very strategically. Ran up there, and then you waited to, calm down, catch your breath, and then approach them all like, hey, Adam Sandler? Yeah. And then it's like, you're not asking them for anything. You're just saying, I produce a show. I'm going to plant a seed, and just maybe it'll get watered. You don't have any expectations. Yeah. And boom, it happened. And then the other cool thing that I thought was great. So that means take the risk, take those moments. Always take those.
Always take the risk. The worst thing that can happen is you can say, no, get out of my face. And then I have that story. And I can tell, then I'll be telling you that story.
You just planted the seed and it just didn't get water. And then you just keep planting seeds and eventually they get water.
Yeah.
And so then the other thing that I thought was really awesome was just how funny it is that like a high level comedic node can just pop into
Anywhere. I've seen people huge people pop into like a 12-person show, or like I've seen,
That's so cool.
It's insane, especially in Los Angeles. But anybody can pop in anywhere. If somebody lives in the area and they're just happen to be around, they might pop in. We had another instance where we had Kevin Nealon, he was just hanging out at the bar at our show. And I was like, what do you, and I didn't notice him. My girlfriend was at the show, and she goes, Kevin Nealon's at the bar. And I said, no, he's not. It's probably some dude who looks like Kevin Nealon. And then I walked over to the bar, and you can't mistake Kevin Nealon. And that's Kevin Nealon. He's just chilling at the bar. And I was like, hey man, I produce a show. Would you like to do 10, 15 minutes? We'd love to have you. And he was super nice. He said the nicest thing that anyone's ever said, because most comedians will either just say yes or no. And he said, as long as I don't bump anybody. As long as I don't take anybody's time, as long as I don't take anybody's time, I'm happy to go up. And I was like, and we happened to have a dropout that day. So I was like, we have time. I was like, we have a dropout, and someone didn't show up, and now Kevin Nealon's here. And he went up and he did great. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Love Kevin Nealon. He's so funny. But
that's cool. There's also something about being able to go and practice your set. That's kind of why a lot of high level notes just, they can be on their own time whenever they want to go and practice some material and see how it resonates with people. But it's also crazy that the higher level you are, you could, like you said, just shit into the mic and
and they lose their mind. Well, I think a lot of these bigger comics want to work out their material in smaller rooms, and they want to cultivate their new material before they have fans pay money to see them. And they want to have their material polished so that when their fans see them and that pay, the big bucks to pay, that's like they gotta get a babysitter, and then they gotta go to a theater and pay for parking and 2 drinks and blah blah. And that's a night for them. That's like $200, $300, per couple, and sometimes even more. Yeah. And they don't want to put on a shitty show, so they drop into all the clubs and all the spots.
That's how you put the feelers out for your comedy, for what you wrote. That's so interesting. Okay, Neel, walk us through what happened to get you here. When did you move to? Were you born in the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay, when did your parents move to the U.S.?
Oh wow.
And from where?
From India. So my dad was actually already in Atlanta, Georgia. He was at Georgia Tech Engineering School, and he the way arranged marriage worked back then, from what my understanding, was he put like an ad in the Indian newspaper. He was like, "Hey, who wants to fuck?" And he like put, "Hey, baby, call me. What's up?"
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Georgia Tech. Atlanta was that's all it was. He didn't have to be like, "I got a huge dick." He was like, "Atlanta," and they were like, "America," and so like women were flocking to him. And he put an ad in the Indian newspaper, and my grandpa saw this and was like, "Oh, Georgia Tech, engineer. This is gonna be, It was like he was studying computer engineering, and it was
India. Oh, United States.
Exactly. Yeah. Eeny, meeny, miny. The one in America. Take that one. So she wrote my dad a handwritten letter, and this is I joke about this on stage, but. She wrote a handwritten letter to a bunch of guys in India, and my dad was the first one to get back to her, which means he got back to her from America. I always joke about that's how horny he was. He beat the dudes who could have walked to my mom's mailbox, and just been like, "Okay, here you go." But my dad was like, "Oh my God, a girl in India wants to marry me," and he was just, like, "What's up, baby? I am ready to fly to India right now," And so he was. They met, he flew to India to meet her. Yeah. He met their family. My grandpa made sure my dad had a green card.
And interesting, this happens about in equal areas of the caste system or the socioeconomic system that they want to marry. Close or above?
Close or above, yeah. It's right in that range. It can't be, it was such a different time then. The caste system is kind of dissipated, but I kind of equate the caste system almost to civil rights and everything. Like when civil rights ended, it wasn't just cool for, it wasn't just awesome for black people. It wasn't just when slavery ended, it wasn't just oh, everything's good now, and
still feeling it.
Yeah, it's systematically, in place. So the caste system is the same way, where it's if you were an untouchable or if you were whatever, you're still homeless. You're still we may not call you an untouchable. We may not call you a Kshatriya or a Brahmin or whatever, but you're still rich and you're still, live on the streets. So socioeconomic class this class system still exists in India. It's not as prevalent, but like I said, there's just residual effects. So my parents were both in an upper middle class of the system, and he was approved by my parents' family, and my dad's family was in India as well. They met. They got married, I believe, within the next 2 weeks or 10. Damn. Yes, it was quick. It was mad quick, and
know how you vibe with the person.
Yeah,
2 weeks
I know. Figure it out. Yeah, they didn't
figure it out.
She vibed with his profile. She was really into his profile pic, and he showed up and he looked like his profile pic. So she was like, "All right, that's good enough." Yeah,
Still together?
Yeah, they're still together.
Wow. Yeah.
It's funny.
Brothers and sisters?
I have a sister. I have an older sister.
Older.
Yeah. And it's funny because I get that a lot where people are like, "Oh, your parents were arranged and they're still together." Yeah, because divorce in India is a fucking sin. It's like blasphemy. If you divorce somebody, it's like,
Whoa.
it's worse than adultery or murder. It's like murder, basically. It's just not a cultural thing. It's becoming more common in India, which I think is great because a lot of relationships, there are a lot of abusive relationships and a lot of shitty relationships in the within the Indian culture, and they don't divorce because it's so frowned upon culturally, and it's becoming more common now in 2018. But
it's worth leaving so that you can find someone that aligns with your soul more.
Right.
Yeah.
Or someone who
But
doesn't.
not necessarily the 60% divorce rate that the United
Yeah,
States has.
we don't need. Is it 60 now?
I think
Is it
last
more
time
than
it was.
half?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
more
yeah.
than a
Last
coin
time it's
flip?
more than half,
Oh,
yeah.
that's not good. Yeah, we don't need 50. We could 20, 30 is fine. You know, let's go 25. Let's start there. You know, let's start with a quarter.
To make sure that we know that the person is the right one for us prior to especially having a child with them.
Right.
That's a disaster. Okay, so continue.
Right. So, you know, it's funny because like people are like, "Wow, they're still together. They still love each other." It's like I don't know if they love each other. I don't know about that. It's like a business relationship at this point. It's like, you know what I mean? So it's not. I don't know if my parents. I've never even seen my parents show each other affection. So I have no idea.
You had to when you were like 3 or 5 or 7 or something. No, when you were younger.
I don't know if they've ever hugged in front of me. I don't know. It's just not a cultural. I mean, well, I don't even know if it's not a cultural thing because I know Indian people that show affection. That's crazy. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, Indian people don't kiss. It's a cultural thing. They don't. No, it's all business. No, my parents they don't really show affection toward each other, and it's very interesting. It's very much like a business. It's like a partnership more than it is a relationship, or what I perceive as a relationship, or what Western culture would perceive as a
But
relationship.
did dad and mom give you that love and hug and affection?
Absolutely not. I'm sorry, that made me laugh. That's so much. Oh man, no, not at all, man. My parents were raised in a very strict household. My dad came from like a village. He came from a village that I used to say it on stage, and then I realized it sounds like a slur. He came from a place called Kirti Nagar, which sounds like the N-word. You can't say it. It's Nagar, Nagar. And
Kirti Nagar.
No, you just said the N-word.
Kirti Nagar.
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 Gar.
Nagar.
Yeah, there you go. It's close enough. It's close enough. I'm gonna soundbite that.
It's a village name. No, I'm trying to actually pronounce a village name. You know, that's the truth, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my dad is from Kirti Nagar, and he went to a school where they had like one book, and he was in a classroom full of like 100 kids, and they would share one book, and he came from like just a very different lifestyle. So like the love and affection and all this stuff, he was just raised in a third world country, and growing up, growing up here, I was like, what's wrong with my dad? What's wrong with my family? But the more I've learned about him and his upbringing, the more I'm like, oh, he's just a completely different world, you know? I'm sorry, I know that's really weird. And,
not at all, because this is a direct evolutionary transition. You're pushing within the lineage. There's epidemiology. There's so many things that go down throughout your ancestral lineage, and one of the things is the fact that if your mom and dad are not as emotionally affectionate towards you and towards each other, that directly affects their offspring. So
sure.
Yeah. So then that affects you. You know, you may hug, love, touch, vibe with people differently because of that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, one of the things I took from my family was like that, you know, there's like two ways you can go about things. A lot of people that are like physically or emotionally abused as children, and they perpetuate and continue that cycle. And then there are people that are physically, mentally, or whatever abused that decide, hey, my parents did that to me.
It requires a lot of work to get through that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it just takes like maturity and
it does,
a lot of work. Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, it's like I could be resentful of my family, and I could say, you know, like we were talking about.
You laughed about it. You weren't resentful about it. You've learned and grown from it. And
well, laughter is the best medicine. It really is, man. It really gets you through anything and everything, and. It took a long time, but it's something where, like we mentioned before, the camera's rolling. You know, it's like you only get two parents. You know, you only get one family, no matter how long it takes for them to come around or for you to come around to them, you got to make it work.
Don't mess it up,
don't mess it up. I mean, unless they did something horrendous, and they should be in jail or whatever, you know, but other than that, there are a lot of things, there's a lot of hurdles and things you can get through. Family.
There's some cool, there's some cool content on the site. We have a connection up here where we can show you guys kind of like, here we have Neel's site, neelnanda.com, the link's in the bio. I want to show a couple of the images. This is from Jimmy Kimmel. You had a couple. Do you have a couple images from Unnecessary Evil as well?
Yeah, there's one right there.
Cool.
That's a young Neel in this stupid shirt that I don't wear anymore. But yeah, that's from like probably 2013, 2014 maybe. And yeah, I think I'm doing, I don't know what joke this is.
That's the PlayStation.
Oh, that's probably the PlayStation. Actually, that is the PlayStation. That's the beginning. That was probably the first time I did the PlayStation joke. And yeah, this is from Unnecessary Evil. It's at Westside Comedy Theater. And yeah, man, it's been a wild ride, man.
Can you believe that was 6 years ago, man?
I don't know if this was 6 years ago. It was probably like three, four, or something like that. Okay. I had a beard. When we started the show, I didn't have a beard. I was clean shaven. I was a child. I was.
You definitely look like you're like 18 when you're shaving, huh?
I look like
20,
I'm
18, 20 when you're shaving.
15 to 20. Yeah, I can do high school.
You can do
without
high
a beard.
school.
Yeah, I could be in High School Musical if I wanted to. Yeah. So that's Unnecessary Evil.
I want to show this because you were mentioning this. I think this is really important. But how it's so weird that when you go on certain sets, the conversation is really chopped and whatnot. A lot of it's soundbited and stuff like that. So with Kimmel, right when he said, thank you, that they cut, but he was telling you here about how much he liked your set.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I was hoping that would be on. I was hoping that'd be on the air. I was like waiting for it, and then the camera panned away, and I was like, no, but that part where we were laughing and talking and shaking hands and stuff. Yeah. I'll never forget that moment because he came up to me. I did a joke about a guy named Pajamas. Who spells it Pajamas, which is pajamas. And I did the joke, and he came up to me afterwards. He's like, "Is that real? Is that a real guy named Pat? That's hilarious." And we were just joking about it, and we were laughing. I remember the producer that booked me on the show. We went after the set. I was like, "Hey, how did it go? Was it okay?" And she goes, "Did you see how much he was laughing up there?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, it's gonna be on TV." I was like, "I know, it's gonna be amazing." And then it wasn't on TV. But my manager's assistant snuck these photos. So this is like behind the scenes stuff.
Props for those good pics.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. I appreciate you, man.
And so that's also interesting. How is it?
Did you lose your mic?
Testing 1 2 1 2 test. No, I'm still. I have full batteries here. We are.
Did I lose?
Tell some jokes.
Tell some jokes. We good? I don't know if I'm dating girls, if I'm feeding girls.
Why don't you tell us about some more of the transition for parents from when they got here and how you ended up in LA.
How I ended up in LA.
In comedy. Yeah.
So before I was in comedy, I was in a band actually. I was in a screamo band where actually. Still on MySpace. You can check out our MySpace. Silence Before Sunrise. Check us out. I was in a screamo band. I was the lead guitarist in a screamo band. I just did, because of my strict cultural upbringing, my parents were all about math, science. My son's going to be a doctor or an engineer or dead. Those were my three options. I was like doctor, engineer, or I don't have a home. And because of that, I was pretty rebellious. I started to rebel, and my way of rebelling was to jump into the arts and to get a Gibson SG, which is the guitar with the like spikes on it, and I had an Ibanez, and I was like, I tried to be a rock star. My parents were not supportive of that at all. And so I got a lot of my stage presence from just being in a band, and I was in a band all throughout high school. And when we all went to college, we all broke up because everyone was going separate ways and everything. And I thought about joining another band, but I realized I hate working with people. So No, I just didn't like coordinating schedules with 4 other guys where it's like we gotta, I gotta, go to the drummer's house when he's available, and then if the keyboardist isn't free, and then blah, and you gotta lug around all this equipment, and then hey, we got a show on Thursday, and then it's like, hey, I can't make it, I got a soccer game, and it's just like I can't do that anymore.
Easier to be an independent content creator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I was
Am I on, Ron? Yeah. Great.
So when I was in high school, I had a notebook, and I would, when I was in middle school, actually, I would watch a lot of Comedy Central, and I would watch like the Comedy Central Presents, the Premium Blends, and a show called Comic Remix, where it would just play like, it'd be like a Steve Harvey bit, and they'd be like, and then it'd be like Wanda Sykes, and then it would go to another comic, and I would sit and watch that with a notebook, and I would write down everybody's jokes.
Yeah.
And then in middle
Good
school,
practice.
Yeah, and
Good practice.
Right, and then the next day I would go to like lunch, and I'd be like, "Yo, check this out," and I would tell people jokes, not crediting anybody. I wasn't, but it wasn't like I wrote this.
Exactly.
I was like, I heard this joke, and then I would tell everybody.
And you're practicing the presence of communicating a joke, working with people, feeling that vibe at a young age.
Exactly. And when I was like 13 or 14, I would do this. And my sister used to make fun of me so much. She's like, "You loser." And I was like, "I'm hilarious." And then, "Shut up, Bonnie." And
she's a couple years older?
4. 4.5 years older, almost 5. So so I would do these jokes in middle school. And then when I got into high school, I was like, I figured out, because I was writing other people's jokes, I figured out how to write a joke. Just set up punchline.
Yeah.
And so I started writing my own in high school, in probably like sophomore year, so I was probably 15, 16, and I started writing my own jokes. I had a notebook full of jokes, and when I was 19, I was dating this girl, and I told her about this. I was like, I have this notebook full of jokes, just all these. I used to do one-liners. I was a lot like, I wanted to be like Dimitri Martin or Mitch Hedberg or Stephen Wright. Those were the guys I really looked up to. So I would have a lot of like one-liners, like one of my earliest ones was like, "I'm a lover, not a fighter," which really confuses the guys that I fight. And just like really, just really silly, punny, one-liners. And I had a full notebook of these, and I showed them to my girlfriend at the time. I was like, "Oh, look at these are my jokes," and she was like, "You can just tell people at a comedy club." And I was like, "No, you can't. You can't do that." I thought it was either me, guy writing in my notebook, or Zach Galifianakis. There was no in between.
Yeah.
I thought, that guy is an actor, and then he became a comedian, or I didn't know that there was a process.
Yeah.
And she was like, "No, there's a process."
The comedy 101 you already did, which was you practicing writing jokes, set up punchline, performing in front of your younger friends.
Exactly.
And then 102 is like, oh, maybe I should actually go and bring it to a set.
Right. So I wrote a bunch of jokes. So I was like, so I found out, I Googled a comedy open mics in Atlanta, and I found the Laughing Skull, which was like it was a very new club at the time. It was maybe like 6 to 10 months old. And I signed up for the open mic, and they gave me a date. They were like, "All right, you're gonna do October or whatever." It was like around Halloween. I had a Halloween joke, and I went and I signed up, and I practiced 5 minutes. What I thought we got 5 minutes at this open mic, and I practiced in my room just every day, like the timing and this and everything. And I get to the show at the Laughing Skull, and I remember thinking, if I suck, I'm never gonna do this again. If it's kind of like, I wanted to try it. If I'm not good at it, then maybe it's not for me. So I had 5 minutes, and I'm so nervous. I'm stepping on all my punchlines. I'm getting laughs, but I'm stepping on all the laughter. Like there's a laugh coming, and I go, and then I went to the, and I was just going and going. I ended up doing about 3.5 minutes.
You get better and better at that craft. I love how you said that you're stepping on the laughter, because you're still awkward with the energy of the audience laughter, and then you get good at giving them space to laugh and let it go, and then you come in on when it gets silent again after laughter.
Exactly. It's all about timing.
Yeah.
It's all about timing, and I didn't have any timing. I wasn't a comedian. It was my first time, and so that 5 minutes turned into about 3.5. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. And I just got off. I don't think I had a closer.
Okay,
I don't think it was like big close, and I was like, yeah. I was just like, all right, bye guys. And I got off stage.
You got some laughs.
I got laughs, and I remember I did really well, and the club owner was hosting the mic at the time. And he was like, was that your first time? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, that was great. And then everyone applauded. He said that on stage. And everybody applauded, and he was like, please keep coming back. And I was like, okay. So there was like a little bit of encouragement there. And
you need that to keep going.
You absolutely need that. Yeah. I credit him for helping me do comedy and ruining my life. So by making me do comedy.
And who was the person that encouraged you? Was it your girlfriend, or you said your sister?
That was my girlfriend.
It was your girlfriend
that
encouraged you that there's a next step to the process. Yeah,
she was like.
Still keep in touch with her?
No. No, I do not. No, she lives far away, 2,000 miles away, and didn't end well. So, but thank you for encouraging me. That was I didn't know I could just go to an open mic. I appreciate you giving me that information. But yeah, she encouraged me, and
he did too. Yeah.
And he did too. Well, he kept me going because he invited me back to the club. And I remember he emailed me a few weeks later and was like, hey, do you want to come do this show? And at the time, I was in college, and I gave my like regular email and not my school email, and I didn't check it. And I remember I went back to the club at the open mic like maybe a month later, and I signed up, and he goes, hey, you didn't respond to my email. I was like, what? And he was like, I was trying to book you to do 5 minutes on this show. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought I ruined my comedy career. I was like, it's over. I'll never work again.
Email.
And I apologized, yeah, because I didn't check and I went and checked. I was like, oh my God, he did email me. And he was gonna give me 5 minutes on a real show. And I was like, I was losing my mind. And he was like, yeah, dude, just respond next time. And I was like, okay, I promise I will. And so I kept going, and he helped me get into other venues, and he encouraged me to keep coming back to the open mic. And I was also naive because I just thought, so I had 5 minutes, I eventually got the 5 minutes, and the 3.5 turned into 5 eventually. And I got the 5 minutes, and for 6 months, I kept doing the same 5 minutes, just doing it over and over again, refining it, tightening it, and blah, blah. Okay. And I just thought that's all you did as a comic. I thought that was it. You have an act, you got 5 minutes. If you're doing 5 minutes, you do 5 minutes, it's the same.
You refine it to perfection.
Perfection, and then you just do it forever. And that's it. And then, then when you do 10, okay, you add another 5, and then you just always do that 10 minutes. I just thought that's how it worked. And he had to tell me, he had to be like, oh, you can write more material. And I said, yeah, but what about like if I'm doing 5 minutes, like what do I do? He's like, do a couple of the old and then do a few new. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah. And it was funny because I'm positive all the other comedians in Atlanta were making fun of me. They were absolutely like, he's going to do the same set. He's going to do this joke. He's going to do that. And I'm sure they were making fun of me behind my back and to my face because I was 19 and they were 30. So they were thought it was, that was, how it worked. But that's what happens when you're 19 and they're 28. And so I'm sure they were making fun of me behind my back as well as to my face. But I didn't know. I just had no idea. I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't know that there was a culture. I didn't know that there was a community. I didn't know any of this stuff. It took me a long time to learn that because I was a 19-year-old kid. I had no idea. So I did it for a few more years. And
in Atlanta? In
Atlanta, yeah. And when I was done with school, I thought, I had the option or I took some time off before trying to apply to grad school or do any of that stuff. And while I was doing that, I was like, I want to check out either New York or Los Angeles, and I decided to just on a whim go to Los Angeles, and I never left. I just never went home. I fell in love with the comedy and just the abundance of comedy.
What was
Los
the spark
Angeles.
that brought you to LA?
Well, I went and checked out New York first, and I'd been back and forth between Atlanta and New York a lot. Especially, I'd spend like a few weeks there, or like a week there, and just run around, do the mics and the shows. The spark that brought me to LA was. I don't know.
I'm glad you made the first move to New York as well, to go check out New York.
Yeah.
It's really important to go and press your talents in larger metropolises and just see how you vibe in those areas with higher level talents as well.
Right, right. I didn't like New York because at the time I was doing a bunch of open mics and stuff, and they weren't as supportive as they were in Los Angeles, and I was paying money to do open mics, and I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that was insane. I still think that's crazy. I still think it's insane to pay money to do. They were like $1 a minute, and it's like, yo, you mean you're taking $5 from 40 people? You're making so much money, and every week or they do an 8 o'clock and a 10 o'clock, and then you would do like 3 mics, and I'd just be like, oh, so I just spent like $20 to do. To bomb, to not even do well. And I always thought that was weird. And in LA, I was like, oh, I'm not paying. This is amazing. Oh my God. And
also, I thought you were going to mention how New York has snow and you were like,
oh yeah, I can't do the weather. I just can't. I could have probably done it when I was younger, but now I'm like, I don't want to do the weather, and I don't want to see rats every day. I don't want struggling to live to be part of my life. I don't take pride in that. A lot of people that live in New York City take so much pride in like, oh, and then I took 3 trains and then there was snow, and it's like, that doesn't make you a better person. It just makes your life more miserable. It doesn't make the city better because you took 4 trains and saw 8 rats and had to step over 3 homeless dudes. That doesn't.
There are better exercises in character development, almost always.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, especially when you can choose to do what you want with your time rather than have to take 3 trains and stuff.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a time thing too.
It's a time thing, and so you're in LA. You're starting to, see the scene there, and the scene is more attractive to you.
Yeah, and same with when I first moved to Los Angeles, I figured I would be proactive and start a show. And I did. Good
for you.
And I made some good friends, and we started a show at a place called the Lyric Hyperion Theater, and this was 2012, 2013. And pretty quickly, we put in a lot of work. It was a stand-up and sketch show where we would do some sketches, and we would bring up a stand-up showcase. And pretty quickly, we started getting some really awesome comics like Eric Andre and Kyle Kinane, and we were selling tickets, and we were making some decent money. And it wasn't even about the money; it was mostly just about the stage time and being able to have a place to practice our craft. And I parlayed that into, I went to the Westside Comedy Theater for an open mic, and I spoke to a guy there. The theater's in an alley, and there was a guy outside smoking a cigarette in the alley, and I was just talking to this guy, and I was like, man, this is a great theater. And he was like, yeah, thanks, man, it's a cool theater. And I had no idea who this guy was, and I was like, man, this venue's amazing. I would love to do a stand-up showcase here. And he was like, oh, really? And he's like, do you have any experience? And I was like, yeah, I do this show in Silver Lake, the Lyric Hyperion. I have, we have comics like Eric Andre and Kyle Kinane, blah, blah. And he was like, well, I own this theater. Would you like to do a showcase here? And I was like, I had no idea who I was talking to. I was just talking to some dude with a mustache. And it happened to be Sean Casey, who was the owner of the theater. And I was like, all right, how do we do this? I still had no idea what I'm doing. And I was like, I'd never produced a show before. I had produced my show in Silver Lake for less than a month, for maybe 3 weeks at this point or so, maybe 3-4 weeks at this point.
That was enough of a credential to get
Yeah, that was enough of a credential.
Show.
I produced a show one time for 3 weeks, and I've had 2 good comics do it. And he was really cool. So he gave me his email. I said, okay, cool, let me email you. I met in his office. We picked a day, and the whole thing was, all right, let's pick a day, and we'll see how it goes. Let's see what we can do. And so we picked a day, and I brought on 2 friends as producers, and we picked a day, and we got this. The lineup was insane for our first show. It's insane because they were all really good comics. They were the best comics we could get, but now they're all famous. Our lineup was like Tone Bell, Sean Patton, Ali Wong, Laurie Kilmartin. Like, it was just an insane lineup of comedians, and I was like, this should sell out. This is, and anywhere in the country, if that were the lineup, if it were the Midwest, that'd be a 300, 500 seat theater. Westside Comedy Theater is about 75 to 100 seats. It's not huge. It's a workout room. It's a great room, and it's a great size theater to see comedy. Yeah. But it's not huge. It's not, It's not a theater by any means. But so we got this lineup together, and again, I'd never really produced much of a show, and my show in Silver Lake was just me bringing a bunch of my friends and people that lived on that side. So we did a lot of online marketing, Facebook ads, and like we submitted to a bunch of event sites and blogs, and then I prayed. I prayed a lot that people would show up. I just prayed. That's all. That's my work. That was what I did. I booked a great lineup. I put it out there onto the internet and into the world, and I told as many people as I could to buy tickets, and I spread word of mouth and Facebook and everything that was available. I don't even think Instagram existed at this point. Well, I think Instagram was very new. It just started, so no one was really doing ads on Instagram.
And you just listed the process of you do all this hard work with an event. You get the event moving as something that you hope gains traction, and you do your best to give it adjust those variables to give it good traction, and then you just
pray.
Do it. You pray.
You pray.
You do it. Because you took that risk, and that's so important of doing that show. It's a similar risk that we've been talking about. You've got to take those risks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ron.
What is that? We have a minute?
No, it's 15 and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, so I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and we ended up selling out the first show. It was just packed. It was sold out, and it was an incredible showcase. The owner was there. He saw it. He was more than happy. And then we started little by little getting a couple more dates on the books. We got the next month we got 2 Fridays. Yeah. And then the next month we got 2, and then it became 3, and then it turned into, do you want to do this every week? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do this every week. So within 3 or 4 months, we were doing every Friday night at the Westside Comedy Theater. Yeah. And at this point, the club had been doing a lot of improv and not a lot of stand-up. So we were kind of filling a void and bringing stand-up to the theater and bringing stand-up comics to the theater. A lot of times we would book a lot of great comics, and they'd be like, we've never been here before. I've never performed here before. Yeah. And it ended up being, now it's about 50-50 or even 60-40 stand-up improv at the theater. But so that turned into a weekly show, and we've been doing it for 6 years, and now it's kind of a well-oiled machine. It's just, we put out a good lineup, it sells out, and we get awesome drop-ins like Sandler and Howie Mandel and a lot of crazy people. So.
And again, so much of it's that risk. You're just hanging out. So this is in Santa Monica. You're in that alley with this guy.
I'm in an alley with a weird dude has a mustache, smoking a cigarette, and I was like, I guess I'll talk to this dude. And he gave me an opportunity, and I took it, and I ran with it. I think a lot of my career and a lot of art in general and stand-up in general, I can't speak to I can't be and rappers. I can't speak to that, and painters.
Nurses.
And nurses. But a lot of my career in stand-up has been taking opportunities I'm not necessarily ready for, and then rising to the occasion.
Exactly.
That is what you have to do. And I think if you care enough about it, you can rise to the occasion. The first time I was told to do I was told I'm doing 10 minutes. Do you think how would I have 10? How would I know I had 10 minutes? The first time I had to feature somebody doing 20 minutes. I didn't know I had 20 minutes, but I sat there and I wrote and I tagged and I said, okay, this is an old bit I'll bring back, and this is that. I put it in order and I practiced and I rose to the occasion. Yep. The first time I had to do an hour. First time I had to do a headlining set, I had to do a college, and I was literally about to shit my pants in my hotel. I was in my hotel room, and I had written down every joke I had ever written, praying that it was going to be an hour, praying that would be enough. Ended up being an hour and 20 minutes, which was insane. They were like, get off stage. Yeah. But I had no idea. I didn't know. I couldn't time myself. I didn't know I had gone 20 minutes over. But you just have to take the opportunities you're not ready for, take the risk, and rise to the occasion. That's the only way to grow. It's the only way to know if you're ready for things. And you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail. I'm not saying 100% of the time I rose to the occasion, or sometimes I would do the job but barely. I would do the 20 minutes but 8 of it sucked, or I would do the hour and 24 minutes were awful. But you learn. You learn that, okay, I need to fix this, I need to work on that. And I highly recommend taking opportunities you may not be ready for and just going for it. It's so important. And I realized that the first couple times I did it, I was like, okay, so I guess this is how it works. you know?
That is so well said. I'm just going to leave it there. That
Yeah.
was so well said, Neil. I'm really excited for that segment to be heard by people.
It's true.
It's so well said, my man.
Oh, thank you.
Rise to the occasion, even when you're not ready.
Yeah, I mean,
That's how we learn and grow.
we talked about Kimmel and stuff. I'd never done late night. I'd never done, and when I did my Comedy Central set, I'd never done a set on television.
When would be the right time?
Yeah,
Right.
when would be the right time? How are you prepared for something you've never done before, you know?
Oh, I need another year.
Yeah.
You know, I would never ever.
It's very, there's a lot of things that people will tell you in your career, and a lot of it stems from resentment, or from, a lot of it stems from their own insecurities or resentment, and a lot of things that, you know, people in all art forms, whether it's music or comedy or whatever, will tell you comes from their own sense of failure. You just have to do what you think is best for you. You have to do what instinctually works for you. Always go with your gut, always go with your instinct, and listen to people's advice, but take everything with a grain of salt, you know?
It's well said.
Oh, thank you.
Well done, Neil. Like hanging out with you a lot.
Yeah, I like hanging out with you, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
I do.
Yeah.
All right. I want to ask you about political correctness in comedy. We don't have much time, but I just want to at least hear some of your thoughts
Sure.
about how that's been affecting the comedy scene over your career.
Well, I do think one thing that I think is, one thing I'm excited about is I do think the pendulum is swinging. I do think people are getting tired of hearing the same TED Talk over and over again, hearing the same points over and over again, and people are realizing, hey, these are great ideas, these are great thoughts, but this isn't necessarily comedy. It's not necessarily funny. You're making what I call it is humorous observations. You're making a humorous observation, you're not really making a joke, you know? And as far as political correctness goes in comedy, it is pretty prevalent. You have to be careful about what you say.
The humorous observations that you're talking about are ones where the person is being politically correct.
Yeah, you're being politically correct and you're making a joke, but it's not necessarily, you're making a humorous observation, not necessarily a joke. You're equating something, or you're finding an analogy that's related to what the agenda you're trying to push, as opposed to what's funny about the situation. It's not necessarily a joke, it's more, oh, okay, that's a humorous point.
Within the box of what's allowed.
Yes, within the box of what's allowed. And as far as like what's allowed and what's not allowed, there is absolutely a void.
I personally, if you just say your village name, you know, I understand like why it's bad, absolutely.
Oh,
but
yeah,
also
yeah.
at the same time, it's like it's a village.
It's a village. Oh no, I'm not
Yeah.
upset with you about saying, and I don't think anybody cares.
I know.
And you're
I know.
trying to say, you know, where
there's
it's from.
many things
but
like
there,
that.
But I will say, I used to say it on stage. I used to say my dad is from Nagar, and the crowd would go, oh, immediately, and I go, no, I'm not. I'm just where he's from. That's what I'm saying, you know. And I had to stop saying it. I would say Punjab, which is the state that Nagar is in.
Because it's more PC.
Because it's more PC. It's just. And the thing about comedy is that it is psychological. There are things that are going to turn people off.
Totally.
I can make the same joke 5 times, and it's going to turn off so many people, or it's not going to turn off so many people, and then I could change one word, or I could change one phrase. Like, I changed Nagar to Punjab. I had no problem. Nobody second guessed it. Nobody thought I was trying to say something I shouldn't be saying. They just thought, oh, he said Punjab. I've heard of it. I know what that is. That's safe. And it is psychological, so a lot of times you can still make the same point, you can still make the same joke by changing the wording. You know, there are jokes I say that start off offensive, where I'll tell the joke for the first or second time, and people are offended. I think I've crossed a line, and then I'll sit and go, which part of it did people, what words made people go, maybe you shouldn't say that, and then I'll change those words, and I'll go, okay, I'm still gonna make the same joke, but I'm going to figure out what I can say to appease people.
You basically write the joke several different times, changing things, and see how audiences react to
Exactly.
Authors do that a lot as well in their books. Yeah.
Absolutely. Comedy is all about, the art is all about editing, and it's all about taking things out and adding things in, adding tags and all that kind of stuff. But what I was saying about the pendulum swinging is there has been a lot of political correct comedy out there. There's a lot of specials. There are a lot of shows on television that cater to a specific audience. And I do think people are getting tired of it. I think people are ready to be offended again, or they're beginning to be ready to be offended again.
They're beginning to be ready to be offended again. Wow.
And what I mean by that is, an example of that is I say there's a void because I just worked with a comedian recently. I'm a huge fan of this guy. He's super funny. If you get a chance, you should check him out. Everyone listening should absolutely check him out. He's a guy named Andrew Schulz. He has an amazing album, and it's an album because he tried to sell it as a special, and every network turned it down because it was offensive. He says things that are slightly sexist or slightly racist or within a realm. It's not like he's not like saying slurs or anything. Yeah, he's not saying anything crazy, but it is a little edgy, and it's edgy. Yeah, it's edgy. It's on the line. I would say it's on the line. I don't think any of it's over the line. Yeah. Some people may, but I don't think any of it's over the line. And so he put it out as an album, and he put it out his special. He taped a special and couldn't sell it. So he put it on YouTube in clips. Every clip from the special, because he cut it up into pieces, has gone viral. Every single one has hit. I think he's over 10 million views at this point. Whoa. His album was the #1 album in the world for 2 weeks. He sold more records than Cardi B his first week he put out his album. It was insane. The numbers were insane. And now he went from selling 50 tickets every club he went to selling out theaters. He's selling out 1,500 seats in every city he goes to because of YouTube, this album, and because of this void. He's the only one who's out here saying what everyone wishes comedians would say. And it's beautiful because now every network is like, hey, when's your next special? What's going on? Hey, what's going on? You know, they're seeing the numbers, and they're seeing the support, and they're seeing his following grow. And he did that himself. He just put it out there. He said, this is who I am. I'm edgy, I'm offensive, and I'm not going to be PC, and I'm not going to clean up my act. And people all over the world, because he did a European tour, because he toured the United States. He's still touring right now, selling out. He posted a date. He was like, I'm going to be in Chicago, and that show sold out within minutes. And then he said, should I add another show? And then everyone said, all his fans, add another show. Added a second show, sold out. He ended up doing 5 shows in Chicago because
he tapped into how much demand there was.
Yeah. And I worked with him recently. He spoke to me. He's like, there's a void, man. People want to see this. Yeah. The pendulum is swinging. People are coming back to it, and I'm really excited about that. I do think there are things you shouldn't say. Totally. I do think that don't be hurtful, and I also,
be very respectful. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a quote from Carlin where and it's
interesting.
And I don't know the exact quote. I would look it up, but basically he said that comedy takes aim at people who have more power than us. Comedy takes aim at people who aren't disenfranchised. To not make fun of people like the LGBTQ community and stuff like that. They're disenfranchised. They're at a disadvantage. Comedy's not about kicking them while they're down. Exactly. It's about kicking them while they're up. And so you can make fun of people. Like I make fun of I have a new joke where I make fun of the Kardashians a bunch, and people get people are like, oh, how could you? They're women, and it's like, no, they're fine. Yeah. They're fine. They have billions of. They're fine. They're okay. Don't worry about them. And people are starting to come around to it. The joke is like I said, I had to edit it and fix it and work on it, but now it's working. It's working.
There's definitely a joke in the fact that Elon Musk can land 2 rockets at the same time next to each other, and then people will still troll him and hate him.
Oh, absolutely.
There's for sure a joke built into that. And so what you're doing is you're pulling from these different sources and crafting this joke. And
So I think that there has been some benefit to political correctness in comedy. People are being smarter, wiser, choosing their words more wisely. Yeah. But as far as the biggest thing to police a comedian's material is when you don't laugh. That's how you cut it out. If there's something that the comedian's saying that you disagree with, or you think is offensive, or you think is wrong, you don't laugh, and that comedian can't tell the joke again. I can't tell a joke more. No one laughs, I will try a joke 2 or 3 times. If people don't laugh, I know I either went too far, or it wasn't funny, or I need to rewrite it, or I need to throw it away. So, and eventually I'll throw it away. If something doesn't work several times, it's out of my act.
Different jokes in different demographics too. You can
I'll
poke,
try, yeah.
poke fun about Trump in like LA or SF in New York, and poke
Well,
fun about
I poke fun
Clinton in the middle
Well,
states.
I
that kind of
poke
stuff.
fun about Trump wherever I go because if it's a good enough joke, everybody will laugh. I've poked fun about Trump in rural Illinois and Montana and Georgia and the, all over in Tennessee and Alabama. That was the toughest one. Alabama, I split the room, but then I got him back. But if the joke is good enough, you can poke fun at anybody. If the joke is funny enough, it doesn't matter where you are. If it's universally funny, yeah, there's always going to be an off night here and there, but if it's a great joke, it'll work everywhere.
Well said about PC and the pendulum. Really well
Yeah.
said. Okay, last question. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
What is the most beautiful thing in the world? Laughter. I think laughter is the most beautiful because that's universal. It's absolutely universal. You do something silly, if somebody sees Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, getting hit by the airbag, some dude in China who doesn't speak English is gonna laugh. That's beautiful. Exactly. It brings people together. It absolutely brings everyone together, and I love that about comedy, and I love that about laughter. So I would usually think about a question like that. I'm getting heckled right now. I'm getting heckled by laughter. It's disgusting. It's ugly. I would usually think about a question like that, but I think the most beautiful thing in the world is laughter.
And give me quick that feeling. What does that do for you, feeling laughter? Because all of us, when we feel laughter, there's something so special about it. But what is it for you?
It's nothing else matters in that moment but the joy that you're feeling. When you have a room laughing together, they forget about their problems. They forget about everything they forget about their mortgage and their job and how much they hate their wife and how much, and how much their kids are costing them or how their daughter wrecked their car or whatever. They just forget about what happened that day and they laugh. And that's my goal. My goal is to go to your city and make you forget about your shitty week or your shitty night or your shitty date or your breakup or your
Or make your day better. Yeah.
Or make your day better. Or if you had a great day, I want to make it better. I want, or I want you to relate or whatever. But the beautiful thing about laughter is it brings people together and it helps people take their mind off of things. So I think laughter is the most beautiful thing in the world.
You're an incredible human.
Am I?
Yeah, you are. I think you are.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
I think you absolutely are. And even
Thank
in
you.
just a couple days of knowing each other, I'm just that's why I said it. You're an incredible human. Man.
You're a great dude, man.
You take a lot of different aspects of humanity and you crunch them in with comedy, and I like that a lot. It's a very multidisciplinary approach to reality, and using comedy as a medium, like you were talking about laughter, has all been really awesome, Neel. And I wish you the best, and I hope to host you again when you come back to the Bay Area in the future. We can continue having conversation, unpacking things. Go check out Neel's show for those in Los Angeles, Unnecessary Evil. The link is in the bio. Check out Neel's website, also neelnanda.com. Links in the bio. Go check him out. Contact him there. Get in touch. Also, give us your comments on the show. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you thought. Go and create. Go and build. Go and manifest your destiny into the world. Go execute, everyone. Thanks, Ron, for producing and directing. Thanks, Neel, for joining us.
Thanks,
everyone at home. Much love. We'll see you soon.